Celebrate the best footballers around in the prestigious PFA Awards here on BBC One at 11:30. Before that, with some strong language, a bit more news.
Yes, good evening. I apparently was last on the programme 20 years ago.
Yeah, before the internet.
Before the internet. And I'm now 104, and it's great to be back. The audience is huge. It was much smaller 20 years ago.
Just to be one bloke, we used to tell him about it. We'd go out and tell other people, and that was it, really. It wasn't even televised then.
Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Victoria Coren-Mitchell. In the news this week, Amazon denies that its drivers are losing patience with customers who aren't in when they try to deliver. In the Gulf of Mexico, after successfully smuggling a kilo of cocaine, a drug lord's highly trained raccoon makes a last-minute slip-up. And on the outskirts of Cambridge, a technology company unveils its robot simulation of the final stages of Eddie Izzard's 27th marathon.
Very accurate, that.
On Ian's team tonight is a comedian who recently made a show in Sri Lanka and says the locals were chatty and hospitable, but he yearned for the cold indifference of Londoners back home. Whatever. Please welcome Romesh Ranganathan. And with Paul tonight is a comedian who has described himself as an action transvestite. To this day, Hasbro's worst-selling toy. Please welcome Eddie Izzard. And we start with the biggest stories of the week. Paul and Eddie, take a look at this.
Ah, the Queen, God bless her, there she is. Sorry, there she is.
The Queen is 9 years old.
This is not the time to be practising his archery, and that's when cousins marry.
She has run out of smiles. There was just earlier, they were lighting a thing that goes on, and they said the Queen looked very happy, and she does not.
The Queen's incredibly popular. People are very worried what happens after she dies, so I suggest that she should remain Queen after she dies. I think that would solve all the problems, and all the other heirs to the throne can go on and wave, and, you know, all the other stuff.
They could do like a hologram.
I don't know why you're laughing. I think it's perfectly...
I think there should be new waving. I think I'm curving my hand around a candle wave is odd, and someone should teach.
Imagine you're cleaning a window, you should say to her.
Yeah, well,
I think just bring them really up to date. Just brat, brat, brat. You know,
that could work. But I think if the Queen was in the chair and going along, and then she's going, Jay. Occasionally, a bit of that, you know, because that always works, doesn't it? That works on stage. You come on stage, you go, you know, occasionally, hey. Just live it large a bit,
just,
you know?
Just once, if she was just, and then she just went... Just once, it'd be amazing. Imagine the coverage, there'd be like a 3-hour special on that, wouldn't it? It'd be a series.
Well, Duke of Edinburgh's done it quite a lot.
So she's 90 and that's it.
And how did she kick off the birthday celebration?
The bumps.
She went to visit the delivery office in Windsor.
Yes.
Sadly, there was no one in, so she had to go next door, but that was the official kick-off of the celebrations. Several commemorative stamps are being issued for the occasion. Why was this a difficult photo shoot? What was the challenge?
There was a problem with the boy. They needed to get all the heads on the same level. Right. And he's extremely inconsiderate, and he's not very tall.
I think there's 5 stamps. I think there's 4 of the heads and then 1 of that little stack that he's standing on.
They're just old photo cases, I think. I mean, literally, the photographer hadn't thought beforehand, so he improvised.
So it hadn't occurred to him that George might be shorter than the other people. And it was a surprise. It's like, oh, my gosh. You look a lot bigger in the official photos. I had no idea.
They could have just cropped the books out and made it look like he had extraordinarily long legs. That's what I would have done.
Well, of course, they couldn't do that because they needed each head to be a stamp.
What horrible pressure on the Queen there. You've got a picture of her head now next to a picture of her head when she was a lot younger. I mean, it feels a bit harsh, doesn't it?
It's the sort of thing the Daily Mail would do. Hasn't she aged badly? 1957, she looked a lot younger.
You know,
Look, she's
that's actually
old.
an anomaly, though. You know, you don't normally get 2 Queen's heads on a stamp. If the Queen's own face is on a stamp, you get a crown, not the silhouette. Because this is a slightly odd photo shoot to fit everything in. They figured they couldn't put a crown neatly in there, so they got 2 Queen's heads. It's very exciting for stamp collectors.
It is, as are most things.
Sorry, but that kid's head on a stamp is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life. I would post the letter just to get it out of my possession.
Normal people who aren't stamp collectors, they would use the stamps, they'd peel them off, but you can still keep the remaining portrait. There you go.
I tell you what, that headless child's still not as creepy as the one with just his head on.
What has 83-year-old Ben Bennett erected in his garden in Windsor? Put up in his garden in Windsor to celebrate the birthday.
An effigy of the Queen, 12-foot effigy.
It is a 12-foot effigy of the Queen, yes. Yes,
Why is she next to a sex offender? Sorry, I'm referring to the head rather than the man in the red. Just in case the lawyer's suddenly woken up.
Are you sure that's the Queen? It looks like Colonel Gaddafi.
Mr. Bennett said they've given joy to hundreds and hundreds of local people.
Can he name them?
Now, who knows what misfortune befell this royal well-wisher?
Pin in it, and boof, and she went up over a house and landed on...
Landed on top of a big Queen's head with some grass coming out of it.
Again, you're close.
How is this happening?
I have no idea. It got in my
She
brain.
wasn't attached to it, but the 9 blew away.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Oh, they've lost it.
Oh, no, they've lost the number
9 is
9.
gone. That's why the lady was running. She's lost the
I
number
thought
9.
she was running at Carol. I felt so bad there.
Oh, is she going to get it back?
running after her
I don't
balloon.
rate her chances very well. Will it land? It's coming back down.
It is. It's...
Oh, it is. She might catch it yet.
She might.
She's
that
not letting
lady's
it go.
from
I
Cardiff.
wouldn't
She got up
either.
very early this morning to come here.
Oh, it's a disaster.
I mean, he said it was a disaster, and the biggest disaster was continuing to follow with the footage and see how that ended up. Do you know what I mean? It's a woman chasing a balloon. Is she going to get it back? I don't know, mate. Let's see what happens.
Well, it is a problem for royal commentators because they've been doing the same programme for 50 years.
A lot of time to fill.
A lot of time to fill and very, very little to say.
So the balloon went off and went, holy shit, we've got 20 minutes out of it. Let's see how this pans out. Tuck in. We could do a spin-off special on this one.
I do remember when it was William getting married to Kate, and then people around said, they've been made Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. What do you think? What do you think? And what can you think to that? I said, Cambridge? I thought it'd be Dagenham. No, I don't. Why Cambridge? Why? Of all towns and cities. It could be in Oxford, it could be in Spain, I don't know. What can you say to
Probably
that?
not Spain without an incident of some sort.
Enough of this chat. It's time for our quick Queen quiz.
Yes.
What did former royal correspondent Jenny Bond see inside the Queen's handbag when it fell open during a trip to Pakistan? Yes?
Bags of heroin.
No.
Not that.
Cigarettes?
No.
The Duke of Edinburgh.
No. I can tell you, Jenny Bond exclusively revealed in this week's Daily Mirror, I saw a hanky and what may have been a small mirror.
It is really desperate, this coverage, isn't it?
Hanky in a mirror, handy if you want to take some heroin.
And as the royal finger dabs into the mound...
Next one. We know that the Queen owns all the swans in Britain. What else does she own that shares its name with a well-known politician? Paul and
Buckingham
Eddie?
Palace, the Duke of Buckingham.
There's
She
not
owns
a
all
well-known current politician.
Oh, not somebody in the English Civil War.
No.
It wasn't clear in the question, you see.
So, sorry. It's sturgeon.
She owns all the sturgeons.
The Queen owns all the sturgeon, dolphins and whales in British waters.
Ah.
Do they know this?
To mark the Queen's wartime work
Yeah.
as a mechanic,
Yeah.
what did Quick Fit offer to do?
Get Prince Philip up on the blocks. Have a look underneath it.
They sculpted a portrait out of motoring accessories.
Oh, it's Gaddafi again.
It's made of 800 car parts. And in a touching tribute to the Queen Mother's favourite tipple, some brake fluid. It's in there as well. So, what do you think it's called, the sculpture?
Abomination.
It's called the Queen of Parts. Right. Final question in the Quick Queen quiz. How did German magazine Der Spiegel celebrate the Queen's birthday?
Did they make a sculpture of her out of stuff they found?
They put a touching tribute on their front page. There we go,
It was an article specially commissioned by Prince Charles.
Finally, back to the Queen's birthday. Yeah. How did the animals at the Blue Cross Homing Centre in Torbay mark the Queen's birthday?
They wrote a poem. They did. And this is it.
Go on, then.
Roar, 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 roar.
You are basically correct. Although it wasn't a poem, it was the song Happy Birthday.
Oh, wow.
Shall we have a look at the animals' performance?
They all sang it, did they? Oh, don't applaud.
You mentioned poetry earlier. This was, of course, a perfect opportunity for the poet laureate, Carol Ann Duffy, to write a nice poem marking the Queen's 90th. What has she specifically chosen as her subject?
She's a different type of poet laureate. The old types used to, you know, do birthday odes and tributes, but she's doing an ode to the demise of the gas meter. Because, you know, they're passing from the nation's life, and she's going to commemorate them.
We should be using some, you know, the pun, the fact that meter means something in poetry.
That would be terrific.
Yeah, you know, extol the virtues of these gas meters as they disappear.
Yeah,
Perhaps
an epic story.
when she finishes the poem, she could give us a reading. Thank you.
I hope she's corgi registered.
Yes, this is the wonderful news that the Queen is 90 years old and still going strong. Several national events are planned to celebrate this momentous royal milestone, including a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's, lovely, a street party in the Mall, terrific, and a televised horse pageant presented by Anton Depp. It's a no from me. According to one of the many fact-filled royal pullouts this week, Buckingham Palace has its own cash dispensing machine. Yes, it's called the taxpayer. The Queen has bred corgis with dachshunds, which are known as dorgies. Though, of course, that could just be her way of pronouncing doggies. Ian and Romesh, take a look at this.
That's my inspiration. It's a headmistress after one of his policies on education.
That's the Remain camp, hitting the phones.
Boris digging himself out of another situation.
Well, this is week 17 of the big Brexit debate, and it's all Go this week. There's a speech from Gove, which shocked everyone because it was sort of not terrible.
What I quite like is the fact that they've all been talking about how they don't want to scare anyone into making a decision, and then Michael Gove compared it to a hostage situation, which is... it feels like this sort of the opposite.
Yes, he said, if we vote to stay in the EU, we are voting to be a hostage, locked in the boot of a car, driven by others to a place and at a pace that we have no control over.
Do you know what I think the problem is that when people use analogies that are purely from their own life experience? I just think that's...
Well, it's funny you should say that. The Sun mocked up a picture to show us what that would look like.
That's an old NUT promotional photo, isn't it?
There's some teachers in.
What did George Osborne call Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, among others?
Bogeymen? Scaremongers?
No, it was a particular insult. He said...
Can't wait to hear how he slammed them. This is going to be incredible.
It was pithy. He said, anyone who says we can have all the economic benefits of being in the EU and at the same time leave is economically illiterate and dishonest. And what was Boris Johnson's analysis of David Cameron's rhetoric?
He said Cameron was talking bollocks.
Pretty much. He said the PM was very clear before the whole campaign began that Britain could have a great future outside the EU, but now there's this idea that no trade can take place unless the different governments agree with each other. Well, bollocks.
That's Latin.
George Osborne said that leaving the EU would cost £4,300 per household. Who'd be taking it?
The economy's going to shrink by 6%, apparently, if we leave the EU, so this money would not be available.
George Osborne put out this massive dossier with, like, loads of equations and dummy variables and all of this crap.
Let's have a look at that equation.
You know, if you're trying to get somebody on side to an argument, you don't use algebra. That's
not the real one, is it?
That's what people hated the most.
That is the equation that George Osborne unveiled.
These are all variables that you can't predict, so those equations are absolutely meaningless.
The last 4 letters seem to spell Egypt.
Who was with George Osborne when he made his big speech? Did you see that?
Liz Truss was there?
It was Environment Secretary Liz Truss. She's not always been a big fan of the EU, of course.
No.
And she was once quite worried about how much of their dairy produce comes to Britain.
We couldn't see that, could we?
Let's have a look.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
But if the consequences of leaving the EU are so terrible, why are they letting us vote on it at all?
Well, it's... Am I going to get into this? I'm a positive person. Basically, I start this discussion with, if we want a world where 7 billion people all have a fair chance, we've got to try and make Europe work. If we want to make it work, we've got to be inside it to make it work. Running and hiding's just not the British way. Standing and fighting is what we should do, so I'm for standing and fighting.
The idea of running and hiding does sound pretty cool, though. Look, I don't know, it sort of implies that if we leave the EU, they won't be able to find us. Where's Britain gone? Got no idea.
That's what they think.
Left the EU, I haven't seen it for a few months.
How did Nigel Farage cheer up a crowd of leavers this week?
He didn't turn up.
No, he shouted out the names of pro-Europeans like Peter Mandelson, Nick Clegg and Tony Blair for the audience to boo. Well, I'm not sure that he quite needed to bring Europe into it. I mean, if we just... I'm going to give it a go. Peter Mandelson. Nick Clegg. Tony Blair. Nothing to do with Europe at all.
Do you agree that audiences are too easily led? Yes.
So, Eddie, you're pro-EU. Who is your unlikely ally who'd emerged this week?
Oh, I don't know. Well, this is a thing. This is a thing. I thought you were just talking to me.
We have been recording this whole time.
Could it be thinking people of the United Kingdom?
No, it's Jeremy Clarkson. If you can't trust someone who punches a younger man in the face when he doesn't get a steak, who can you trust? That's what I say. Jeremy Clarkson said the EU is a liberal, kind, balanced fulcrum in a mad world.
So why is he in favour of it, then?
Who were the big, who were the big celebrity leavers, the big outers?
Ian Botham.
Yes.
Katie Hopkins, isn't she leave?
I don't know.
I think we want her to leave. I think that's the other way around.
The list I've got here is Ian Botham, Eddie the Eagle, Joan Collins and Frederick Forsyth. It's like a Parkinson from the 80s. Amazing lineup. What irritated Boris Johnson this week?
A rash.
While Boris Johnson was making a speech, the reporter Michael Crick was doing a piece to camera at the same time. Let's have a look.
Well, as you heard there, the typical Boris Johnson rhetoric. I was talking earlier to people in the crowd.
Can we tell Crick to... Can someone go and interrupt Crick at the back there? Tell Crick. You can do your piece to camera when I finish.
One of the interesting little incidents we caught... excuse me, I'm live on television.
Guys, yeah, well...
Okay,
keep quiet.
All right.
The guy's trying to talk.
Okay.
You're interrupted.
I'm just trying to explain what's going on here.
Well, yeah, so is he.
Okay. Earlier, excuse me. Excuse me. I was just trying to explain. Okay.
Are you all right there, Michael? I think maybe we'll leave you there for now.
Fine.
Bernie Ecclestone aired his views on Europe at a conference this week, an advertising conference. Who did he say should be running Europe?
He said Putin should be running Europe, which is a distinct possibility. It would take a huge amount. No, Bernie thinks that would be the best solution. Get a hard man in.
For
Europe's pathetic.
What reason? What does he think is good about Putin?
He doesn't have any democratic worries.
Basically, yes. I mean, Bernie
Looks
Ecclestone
good
said...
on a horse.
He said about Putin, he does what he says he's going to do. He gets the job done.
I just don't think it's a great qualification. If somebody finished a pie and they said before that, I'm going to eat this pie and I'm going to finish it, and they said, you know what? He said he was going to eat that pie. He finished that pie. He should be the leader of Europe.
It is. You're saying you need to define things.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
What did David Cameron do at the weekend to cheer his party up?
Oh, was this the away day?
Yes.
Where he did a stand-up routine. What? And told a few jokes.
Did he?
Yeah, they had a bonding weekend. He did some gags. I can't actually remember what
It involves a man moves to a place where there's a farmer.
Yeah.
And the farmer says, we're having a party tomorrow night. Why don't you come? And the guy says, great, I'll come. But the farmer says the only thing is fancy dress. You will have to wear quite a peculiar costume. Well, the man says, that's OK, I'm happy to do that. The farmer says there's going to be a great deal to drink, there's going to be fighting, and then things will get a little lewd, there will be some rough sex. That's all right, the guy says. How many people are coming? The farmer said, it's just us.
And then he said, what are you going to do about the constant downward pressure on milk prices?
Yeah.
What does Jeremy Corbyn become the first major British politician to do?
He's gone on Snapchat.
He has gone on Snapchat.
And what do you do on Snapchat?
Well, Snapchat... Well, what you do, for the most part, is very unsavoury, but...
Let's have a glimpse into the working life of the Labour leader. There we go, that's...
I mean, that is a photo of him having his photo taken. His Snapchat is basically Gogglebox. If you want to reduce Snapchat to effectively a photo album, you can do what Corbyn's done. There's one where he's just taken a picture of a Tunnocks tea cake and then he's just put underneath it road fuel, which I don't know what car he's driving, but that is... it's going to do nothing.
I thought on Snapchat everyone was nude.
You don't have to be.
Oh, you don't?
That was something I discovered about 6 months in.
There's a new job being advertised within the Labour Party. Anybody know?
Nude job or new job?
A new job. A new job. What job is being advertised in the Labour Party? It's actually for the post of Leader's Office media spokesperson. And this is not to say Jeremy Corbyn should be nervous, but under duration it says, for the period only that Jeremy Corbyn is leader of the Labour Party, or until 31st of December 2016, whichever is sooner. This is the debate on Europe, which has generated so many column inches. George Osborne issued a stark warning that Brexit would cost each household £4,300 a year. Blimey, that's 4 rolls of his dad's wallpaper. The President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, admitted that the British public are fed up with hearing about olive oil jugs, the permitted height of a hairdresser's heels and the curvature of cucumbers. But enough about that celebrity injunction. And so to round two, the strengthometer of news. Fingers on buzzer, teams.
Yes, this is Johnny Depp and his wife have been fined because they smuggled, or they didn't think they were smuggling, but that's essentially what they were doing, dogs into Australia, which you're not allowed to do because of quarantine laws and that. They would say that dogs end up looking like their owners, and there is a perfect example of it beginning to happen genetically.
Do you know the dogs' names?
Boo?
Yeah, they're called Pistol and Boo.
Yeah.
That alone is worth community service. Yeah, they took them into Australia without the right paperwork.
Yes.
And Johnny Depp's wife, Amber Heard, she could have got 10 years in prison. What was the key to their defence?
She wouldn't like to be in prison for 10 years?
Because they're incredibly famous, the Australian authorities said if they made a video and they were very, very sorry, then they would let them off the prison sentence.
I'd quite like to have seen Johnny Depp apologise for his version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well, actually.
Well, let's have a look at the video.
Australia is a wonderful island with a treasure trove of unique plants, animals, and people.
It has to be protected.
Australia is free of many pests and diseases that are commonplace around the world. That is why Australia has to have such strong biosecurity laws.
And Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. And if you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly.
I am truly sorry that Pistol and Boo were not declared. Protecting Australia is important.
Declare everything when you enter Australia.
Did you find that a sincere apology, Paul? Were you convinced by that?
I think he was drunk.
The internet was sceptical. Twitter user Scott suggested it looked like when you Skype your parents and Dad still can't deal with you being gay, but Mum is at least trying. How has the video gone down with Australians?
They sort of think that, for some reason, they think that Johnny Depp wasn't showing the requisite amount of enthusiasm.
Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce, he said, I could have done better than that. Do it again, Johnny. Do it with gusto, mate. A bit of gusto. Rise to the camera, you old trout. Staying with celebrities, you'll know this, Ian. Which famous pop star made an unlikely appearance on the Isle of Skye last week? That's right, it was Kanye West, of course.
I thought that was one of the islands.
Yes, you'd only know he was there if you were a very eagle-eyed reader of the West Island Free Press. This appeared on page 16, next to a small story about a kayaker saving some sheep. It said, American man visits Skye. The story continued. The gentleman in question is Mr. Kanye West, apparently in North Skye to record the video for a new song. Mr. West is well known for his hip-hop, his outspoken opinion and his marriage to a woman who gained notoriety for a sex tape.
That's proper journalism.
Yes, this is the celebrity dog smuggling case. After Johnny Depp's dogs got through customs, Australia's immigration minister said they really should be screened. Unlike Pirates of the Caribbean 5. Fingers on buzzers, teams. Here's the next one.
Oh.
Paul and Eddie.
Well, this is the culture secretary. He went to a lap dancing club and was disappointed to do some research to find out how much of his lap would be danced in. Whether we'd be able to drink while the lap dancing was going on, whether what sort of bar snacks were like. And he thoroughly enjoyed it. The research.
Why do people think... I mean, you know, a man can go to a strip club on his own time, can't he? Why do people think this should have been declared?
Well, he went with 2 other MPs. It was like an office outing.
Were you there, Ian?
Yeah, I'm a culture secretary.
Any fact-finding missions in lap dancing clubs?
Yep. I've done 3 today.
Well, it was hosted by the Lap Dancing Association, which was, coincidentally, lobbying at the time against legislation that would have restricted the opening of lap dancing clubs. Although, according to a source in the Times, no record of the trip needed to be made because Whittingdale failed to reach the hospitality threshold.
Oh, yes, he keeps claiming this.
What is that? Is that an angle of over 45 degrees? Or something?
It does seem to vary, and conflict of interest doesn't depend on the actual amount. So they were saying, you know, there should be more lap dancing clubs in high streets. Lots of people thought there shouldn't be. He went on a fact-finding tour, but it was paid for by lap dancing.
He got in for nothing.
Yeah, no, it was all free.
Well, not only did he get in for nothing, but while he was in there, apparently he spent some time on the dance floor, where he picked up about £30 in tips. That means at the end of this round, Ian and Romesh have 3, Paul and Eddie have 4.
Oh, wow. Can I just say something? Are you doing the secretary glasses on and off thing? Because you keep taking...
No, do you know what it is?
What?
Because I'm too short-sighted to read an auto cue, but I can't then see that. Do you know, when I... no, actually, I'm not going to say that. Time now for the odd one out round.
Sorry, I'm not the only one that's intrigued about what you were going to say.
Yeah, I want to know that.
I think I explained this once before, but when I didn't think the show was being recorded, and then they put it on the end. But it was when I bought my glasses. That's what I said to the optician. Because I was nervous about getting glasses. They make me look odd. I said I want the sort of glasses that a librarian would wear in a porn film. I said to a sort of 57-year-old Bangladeshi optician. He went, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's probably never been to a library.
Well, he chose well.
It is definitely time for the odd one out round. Just one between you this week. Your 4 are Midsummer Murders, Captain Calamity, Thriplow Daffodil Festival, and a VHS of the 1986 Snooker World Championship.
Captain Calamity was the one who kept being rescued by the Coast Guard.
That's right, yes. His bike proved to be useless at sea.
Yes, he had to be rescued 9 times, sailing from Norway to America. They had to call out the Coast Guard in Norway, Denmark, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Scotland and Cornwall, which is where they ended up in January, about 3,000 miles short of the target.
Blimey.
Sorry, did he arrive in Cornwall thinking he'd made it? But...
He was expecting to see Indians.
I mean, it was a bit of a calamity, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And were there no daffodils out in the Daffodil Festival? Which I find is a problem.
I think the picture of the piece, the top left-hand corner, that is the odd one out.
No, it's not. Shall I tell you? They've all failed to live up to their names, apart from Captain Calamity.
Who is a calamity? So
Who is a calamity?
That's really thin.
Yeah, that's... I mean...
Controversially, an episode of Midsummer Murders was screened in which there were no murders.
Oh. There is normally a murder. I mean, the death rate there is higher than Kabul.
Why wasn't there a murder?
Well, it turned out that the victim wasn't really dead. Not to spoil it for anyone who's going to watch.
So what happened? He was just taking a nap or something? Like, just for ages?
Is anyone a fan of Midsummer Murders?
Big fan.
Yeah?
When I'm at home, all I watch is either Midsummer Murders or that Johnny Depp video. Just...
That VHS of the 1986 World Snooker Championship belonged to the 1986 champion.
Dennis Taylor, was it?
It was Joe Johnson. But he told The Guardian, the tape goes in and we're all sat round. We could watch the last couple of frames in the presentation, do it as a family, you know, quite nice. Then it comes on, He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Where's my snooker? Wind on, it's still not there, it's gone. One of my boys had taped over the whole thing. The Joe Johnson story I find quite poignant.
Yes.
Because he was an amateur who hadn't even been expected to qualify for that 1986 tournament. He gave this assessment of his chances at the time. He said, I was playing Bill Werbenick a few months before. He hadn't won a game all year and he liked to drink, did Bill. Before our game, he'd had 8 pints. And I'm thinking to myself, lovely. On top of his 8 pints, he had 1 for every frame we played. That was 18. By the end, he drunk 26 pints. And he beat me 10-8. That's how bad I was. And then he won, but they'd wiped the video.
What did he do to his children? Did he kill them? Because that would be fair.
Let me show you a useless box. How does this, which is called the useless box, definitely live up to its name?
Oh, I know this. This is a box that when you switch it on, I think something comes out of that door and switches it off.
Shall we have a look?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, isn't it?
I think that's very good. I thought it would be
that for the nuclear button, couldn't they?
Is this known as the Prince Andrew box in royal circles?
At the Thriplow Daffodil Festival, there were no daffodils.
Right.
Because of the warm winter, all the daffodils had bloomed early. And now they're dead.
What's supposed to happen at the festival when there are daffodils? You just go and look at some daffodils?
Just look at them.
I mean, isn't it a massive blessing they weren't there? I mean, it sounds dreadful.
But it's not just daffodils.
So miserable.
Well, no, miss...
What's a daffodil festival? What do you expect? Tulips?
There are many different sorts of daffodil.
Are there, really? Oh, I didn't know that. OK, fine, now you've got me...
Different shades, different
now
colours.
You've piqued my interest.
We don't believe you without... We don't believe you without your glasses on.
This is... Let me tell you, the Narcissus family is large. Besides, what do you do that's so exciting?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I went to an asparagus festival.
Yes, all of these things have failed to live up to their names, apart from Steve Shapiro, a.k.a. Captain Calamity, who has given up sailing. After being rescued 9 times in a disastrous Atlantic crossing, Mr. Shapiro is thinking of getting a bigger boat. Hopefully one that stretches all the way from Cornwall to America. Midsummer Murders is filmed in Oxfordshire, where no real crimes are committed, as we all remember from the Rebecca Brooks case. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication the Cucumber Growers Association's e-Cucumber newsletter. It's a fairly tasteless publication. And we start with, if you want to be adventurous with cucumbers, what?
Check out the weight in A&E.
If you want to be adventurous with cucumbers, try them in a dessert.
Yes.
This is obviously from the e-Cucumber newsletter about a range of
Are
new
they
recipes.
actually e-cucumbers?
It was because it's on the internet.
Yeah, but
they're not. They're real.
It's Cucumber Growers Association's news.
E-cucumbers.
No, but it should be an
e... Come home on a Saturday night, the sheepdog will be lying there with a bit of yoghurt round his mouth. Let's see, what he needs is a cucumber.
This is from the e-Cucumber newsletter about a range of new recipes designed to increase cucumber consumption.
Yes.
E-Cucumber newsletter suggests recipes such as cucumber panna cotta with strawberries.
Wow.
Although if you're making this at home and you don't have any cucumber to hand, you can always just use nothing instead. Next. Man wakes up to discover he's what?
Donald Trump. Piers Morgan.
Skydiving.
No. Man wakes up to discover he's bought a yak online. Yes, an American man...
Is there a special button on the computer you should never press?
An American man took sleeping pills and awoke the next day to find he'd been shopping at an online company called Yaks and Things. The unnamed man cancelled the order for over $3,000, explaining, "I'm not Baron Moneybags von Richfuck." We should stop using that name. Jerry Hall is Googling it and looking for wedding venues. Next, huge duck army. What?
Huge duck army absolutely massacres tiny duck army.
Faces massive bill.
Huge duck army patrols South African vineyard. This is a vineyard in South Africa that uses an army of 800 ducks to control pests. Next, 18-foot-long cucumber. What?
Does not bother woman with 19-foot corridor.
18-foot-long cucumber available for events. The Cucumber Growers Association.
Oh, that must be the finale for the Daffodil Festival.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Is that real?
It looks a bit like a dirigible.
It's got a handle in the middle of it, look.
Yeah.
Like, it's as if they're going to pick it up there and... I mean,
break
what?
down the doors of a massive salad.
Next, bald men on high alert. What?
As seagulls target pates.
Good enough.
What?
Yes. Bald men on high alert as marauding owl attacks. It is a bird one. This is about an owl terrorising people in Devon. One bald victim of the so-called terror owl was Richard Clevedon Smith, who reluctantly agreed to recreate the incident for the local paper.
I see that in the photograph behind him, the local Beatles tribute band are restaging the cover to Abbey Road.
Finally, whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, what?
Whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, Roger Cucumber puts on his beard suit.
In fact,
Have you got a picture of the two of them standing next to each other?
well, actually, that's a rather moot point, because the answer is, whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, everybody wants a photo. And yes, here is Roger in his suit. What a ridiculous outfit the Cucumber Growers Association is. So, the final scores are... Ian and Romesh have 4, Paul and Eddie have 6. Before we go, there's just time for the caption competition.
Here, mate, want to buy an invisible kestrel?
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists Ian Hislop and Romesh Ranganathan, Paul Merton and Eddie Izzard, and I leave you with news that at the Institute of Chartered Accountants Spring Ball, they come to the conclusion that they're just not conga people. In Missouri, on hearing the words, "I could still be president," a child suffers an instant reaction. And on a walkabout in an amusement park, David Cameron mistakenly believes a member of the public is asking him to buy 2 ice creams. Good night.
Have I Got News For You is back on Friday at 9 with Joe Brand in the hot seat. Football's top names take centre stage next on BBC One at the PFA Awards.
Did you really do 2 in a day?
It's not that hard. It's just quite hard.
No, I was thinking about doing 28.
Yeah. No, do it, go for it. I'll come on the last one, I'll shoot you in the leg.